Picture this. It's a completely normal evening. You're leaving a lavish wedding, you make a quick stop at a pharmacy, and then your entire reality shatters. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are breaking down a really chilling narrative from the source material known as DAR, which translates to fear. We're going to analyze exactly how this story weaves together psychological tension, cultural folklore, and, just our deep-seated dread of the absolute unknown.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever been waiting alone on a dark, quiet street, and you suddenly felt this terrifying, unseen presence just watching you? It's a super universal human fear, right? And it is exactly the vulnerability that this story exploits. The whole narrative centers on a young woman named Khushbu who goes through this literal nightmare. And honestly, by the end of this explainer, you might find yourself double-checking the shadows in your own room. Let's look at how this perfectly ordinary night began to unravel.
Part 1. The Night Journey.
What makes the source materials so incredibly effective is how it totally lulls you into a false sense of security before just pulling the rug out from under you. If we map out the timeline, look at how fast the environment changes. At 10:30 p.m., Khushbu and her friend Manisha leave a lavish wedding, completely at ease, having a great time. But by 10:45 p.m., their two-wheeler turns onto this dark, desolate road. Then, at 11 p.m., Manisha asks Khushbu to pull over at an open medical store to grab some medicine, leaving Khushbu waiting outside all by herself. In just 30 minutes, they've gone from a crowded celebration to absolute unsettling isolation.
Part 2. The Shadow of the Tamarind Tree. Okay, so this is where things start to get genuinely weird. Khushbu is waiting by her bike near this massive tamarind tree and a really tall 15 to 20-foot stone wall. Suddenly, this 25-year-old guy in a white shirt just appears out of nowhere and starts mocking her for being scared. He even somehow manipulates her vision, making her see the medical store as closed. But here is the crazy part. If we look at this from Manisha's perspective, who is just 50 steps away inside the store, she later reveals she saw Khushbu standing there completely alone. She was literally talking to thin air. The narrative brilliantly forces us to question reality right alongside Khushbu. And he doesn't just scare her, he launches into this super chilling monologue. He tells her that, no matter how brave we act when we're in a crowd, our true courage is tested in desolate places. He actually starts listing them off. Abandoned buildings, the city outskirts, graveyards, and hospital postmortem rooms. The crucial point here is what he reveals next. He literally points to that massive 15-foot stone wall they are standing right next to and tells Khushbu it's the back wall of a government hospital. And right behind that exact spot, that is the postmortem room where dead bodies are dissected.
Part 3. Omens of Terror. So right after this, a stray, limping dog starts barking aggressively at the tamarind tree, and soon literally all the dogs in the area join in, just howling into the night. Khushbu is absolutely terrified, and the boy explains the folklore to her. He says humans cannot see evil spirits or demons, but animals absolutely can. He claims that when dogs cry out like this, it means an evil entity has arrived to claim its chosen prey, and he heavily implies that Khushbu might just be that chosen prey. And it actually gets worse, because this ties perfectly into the second major omen. When Manisha finally returns with the medicine and Khushbu frantically tells her about the guy in the white shirt, Manisha points out that there was no boy. But more importantly, she reminds Khushbu of a really well-known local myth. Tamarind trees are traditionally believed to be the primary dwelling places for dark, evil spirits. Khushbu suddenly realizes she has been standing in literally the worst possible place at the worst possible time, talking to something that absolutely should not exist.
Part 4. Unveiling the Horrifying Truth.
So this is where logic just completely goes out the window. Panicked by the howling dogs and the whole tamarind tree situation, Khushbu yells at Manisha to get on the bike. At 11:15 p.m., they speed away in terrified silence. But then, at 11:20 p.m., Khushbu's mobile phone rings. She pulls over, answers it, and the voice on the other end is Manisha. Manisha is screaming through the phone from the medical store, asking why on earth she was left behind. The realization hits Khushbu like a freight train at 11:21 p.m. Because if the real Manisha is miles behind her at the store, who in the world is sitting on the back of her bike right now? So she turns the bike around in an absolute panic and speeds all the way back to the tamarind tree. The dogs are still howling. And there, standing by the hospital wall, is the boy. As she just stares at him in pure horror, he gives her this strange smile. And in this incredibly heavy voice, he simply says, "Liked the prey." Right in front of her eyes, he turns around
and walks straight through the solid stone wall of the postmortem room. The sheer shock is just way too much. It completely overloads Khushbu's senses, and she faints dead away right there on the road.
Part 5. The Final Prey. So she wakes up the next night in a hospital bed. Her family is there. The real Manisha is there. It feels totally safe, right? Like the ultimate sanctuary. But in the middle of the night, she wakes up in a cold sweat. She looks out the open window of her room, and her heart just drops into her stomach. Outside, in the pouring rain, she can see a tamarind tree, and standing right beneath it is the boy, staring directly up at her. Trembling, she looks down, and her eyes fall on a newspaper resting on her bedside table. There is an obituary for a young man who recently died in a fatal accident. The photo is staring right back at her. It's the boy. He wasn't a demon or some random monster. He was a ghost, and the horrifying truth finally clicks into place. His autopsy was happening in the postmortem room behind that stone wall at the exact moment she was standing out there. Those words just keep echoing in her head, like the prey. Suddenly, Khushbu suffers a massive, sharp pain in her chest and collapses onto the floor. Her mother is screaming. Doctors and nurses rush in. They are desperately attaching oxygen in all these machines. But outside the window, the dogs begin to howl together once more, the ultimate omen. As the doctors desperately try to save her life, Khushbu feels her entire body going ice cold. A freezing gust of wind blows through the open hospital window, and she hears his final, fatal words. "Let's go now." And with those words, the story ends. It just leaves us to process this terrifying intersection of really bad timing, dark folklore, and the inescapable grip of fear. The source material brilliantly takes these super everyday scenes, a wedding, a pharmacy, a totally normal hospital room, and twists them into absolute terror. So take away this thought. The next time you are standing alone in the dark, maybe near an old tree, and you feel a sudden cold breeze, ask yourself, are you truly alone right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely stay safe out there.